You're watching Tag TV. I'm your host, Tahir Gora. Today, I'm joined with a very special guest, Sheikh Ghassan Manasra from Israel. He's a Muslim Imam scholar, and we are honored to have him in our studio. Welcome, Sheikh Ghassan Manasra. And it's certainly an honor for us to have you in our studio for our viewers. I like to read a couple of lines from your short bio. And Sheikh Ghassan Manasra is a veteran educator, scholar, activist, and speaker in the interrelated fields of interreligious dialogue and education for Arab-Jewish coexistence in Israel. He has worked in this field for more than 30 years in Israel. Sheikh Manasra holds an MA in Arabic language and literature from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and took courses towards his doctorate. He also holds a BA in Islamic and Middle Eastern Studies and Arabic language and literature from the Hebrew University. For many years, he has been active in dialogue with Rabbi Ron Kronish, including as a facilitator with ICCI's Religious Voices for Peace project and as a frequent lecturer and panelist for visiting groups to Israel. In addition, he has spoken and led workshops at many international conferences in the United States and Europe, and he and Rabbi Kronish have traveled to the US on a speaking tour in the past. Sheikh Manasra is one of the Israel's leading Sufi sheikhs and is a member of the Qadri Sufi order. He has written many articles and monographs about Sufism and is currently the director of Anwar al-Islam, the Islamic Culture Center in Nazareth, which is dedicated to spreading the message of a tolerant, moderate Islam within the Muslim world and interreligious dialogue within Israel, the West Bank, and wider Middle East. I welcome you again, sir. What a wonderful bio. What a wonderful introduction. Welcome to Canada. And is it your first visit to Canada?
First of all, thank you for this introduction. It's wow. And thanks for all of the people of Canada. They invited me to be with them in this occasion. No, this is not the first time in Canada. I was twice before this time, but I was in Vancouver. And this is the second time in Toronto as a speaker here.
So, how did you feel about interreligious harmony here in Canada?
I think it's like the other places. You can find a very good connection and harmony, and sometimes you can feel or you can hear about the problems of connection. But I think it's a very good a place for connection and a very good place for the harmony of meetings here between the three monotheistic religions and also all of the religions, all of the nationalities here in Canada.
And what is the situation of interreligious harmony in Israel?
You mean today or?
Today.
Today. It's a very sensitive today. But let me say that it's a different little bit from what the media sometimes broadcast or introduce, because sometimes you can hear about conflicts, about wars, about difficult things. But yes, we have part of this. But in the other side, we have a very, very, very harmony between us as Arabs, Christians, Muslims, and the Jews. I yesterday in my lecture in the Bet Knesset, I mentioned that before that I came here, I had a Jewish family from Tel Aviv in my house for the weekend. And also, Layla, my wife, Sheikha Layla, and I, sometimes we goes to spend our weekend in their houses in Tel Aviv, in Eilat, in Negev, in different places in Israel. The situation there is a very good situation, and I think the Jewish and the Arabs, both sides, need that connection, especially in these days, in the difficult days. And most of the people think that we need to create good projects on the time of peace. It's good to create projects on the time of peace, and to bring the people to be together, to bring the children, the youth, and the old people, the parents to be together. But very important to create that projects on the time of conflict, on the time of a hard connection. And in these days, we have projects that we activate that project, not only a monthly meeting, twice a month. And I spoke before that I came here last week with my son that we need to create a very important and very urgent project today, and to work how to stop the sensitive situation in Israel, especially around Al-Aqsa and around Jerusalem, and also in all of the Holy Land.
Right. All those sensitive situations are due to political crisis or spiritual misunderstanding.
Right, but I think always you can find some people that they say that the problems will come from religion, or from the spirituality side. It's not true, because there's no problems between religions. You know, if you'll ask some Muslims all around the world, what do you say about Jewish or Judaism? They say, hey, it's a religion, it's a good religion. And most of our stories in Islam about Judaism, and you know, read the Quran. You can find half of the Quran about Jewish and Judaism, about Bani Israel. But no one wants to say that our problems, it's not a religion problems, it's a religious problems. We need to differentiate between religion and religious, because this is the interpretation, the commentary of the religion, and that commentary will come through some people or different kind of peoples that they need to add their own interest to the religion. This is first thing. And the second thing, it's a political, sometimes a political problems. It's not a religious or religion problem. For today, what happened in Al-Aqsa, it's not religious and religion, it's a political, but the politicians, they ride the wave of the religion, and they convince the people that this is a religion or religious problem, that it's the Al-Aqsa belong to us. And I sent to the Israel leadership, stop to play there. Stop to pray there, because this is a big problem. It's not a problem for only the Palestinians or only the Muslims. It's a problem for all of the Arabs, Christians and Muslims, and all over the world. For all of the Muslims all over the world. If you want to create a good situation there in Jerusalem, you must work for that. You must reconciliate between the people, and you must help the minorities there in Israel. How? And you need to empower them, to encourage them to be independent from the side of the religion and from the side of thinking. Not to push them or to reject them from their places or different places.
How many Muslims roughly are in Israel today?
More than 1.5 million Arabs. Among them, about 1 million and about 1 million Muslims, because the majority among the minority, they are the Muslims there.
So, do they call themselves Arab Muslims or Israeli Muslims?
It's complicated as a point, because if you'll say that they are Arabs, what about their identity, political identity? Or, for example, if you ask me, I can say that I'm Ghassan Manasra, I'm a Sufi, Muslim, Sunni, also I'm Israeli Palestinian, both, because I belong to Palestinian family, and also I'm Israeli. I'm living in Israeli state, and this is my identity. I can show you my identity. And most of the Arabs there, they recognize that they are Arab Israelis and or Palestinian Israelis, but sometimes to feed their identity, internal identity, sometimes they say that they are come to say Palestinians. Right.
So it's very interesting to know that, because we have a different perception, especially in the Muslim world, about Muslims in Israel. Unfortunately, Muslim media portray within the Muslim communities, in the Muslim world, rest of the Muslim world, I mean, that Israel is not the place for the Muslim world. But as we know that there are more than 1 million Muslims in that small country, and they are living in a very democratic way. So am I right that they are living in a very democratic way by that?
We live in a democratic, not a very, but we live in democratic ways, and we practice all of our religion, all of our thoughts. But if you'll ask me if there's some discrimination, I think sometimes you can find some discrimination. For example, the Arabs cannot work in the airport. The Arabs cannot work in electric company. The Arabs cannot get in some different places, but you can express yourself. You can live in, and you can have your own independent, religious independent. It's okay for us, but the problem it's not in Israel or in the north. The problem it's in Jerusalem. There is the problem. And also, to be honest, I say to most of my friends, most of my Israeli friends, I say to them, please, you need to protect the people, the Arab and the Muslim and the Christian people of Jerusalem. You need to create a very strong partner. You don't need a weak partner, because if you will create a weak partner, directly you'll send these people to the street. As I mentioned, if you'll send these people to the street, directly they will find their radicalism, and they will be criminals, and they will create lots of problems to your state. But the problem about some Jewish radicals, that they send money to some groups and Jewish groups in Israel to buy or to take the houses of the Arabs and to reject them out of the old city. And this is a very bad situation for the Arabs and the Muslims, and also for the Jews, not only for the Arabs, because sometimes you will find a moderate Jews that they are live there in the old city, and if you take the Arabs, you'll replace them with a radical Jewish, and they will bother the moderate Jewish in the old city. This is the problem.
So what I get from your analysis, that there is a sort of a mistrust somewhere in big cities in Israel, and your Islamic Center and other Muslim centers in Israel, are they working to resolve those conflicts as well?
Yes, yes. We work day and night, all the time, along the 30 years. I have my Anwar Salam, the Lights, Peace Lights Society in Israel. And we work, first of all, we have 2 tracks in our society, the dialogue with the other, and the dialogue within Islam, the dialogue with the other that we made and we make until now. It's a connection, and it's not only to bring the people to meet and to speak and to talk. And it was so nice and beautiful meeting. It's to bring the people to talk, to feel, to understand, and especially to feel, that I mentioned now, to feel them, to feel their fear, their sorrow, their joy, and to try to heal together their situation, and also to ask them to heal you. Because me also, I have sometimes fear. You don't know what will happen, and when you'll see some vulgar groups that they attack your center or attack you, and both sides they wants to demolish everything instead to build together, instead to restore the situation and to heal the situation. And then our society works with the Jewish side, how to achieve and how to get more and more rights for the Arabs in Israel, to feel equal, to feel the same, and to be a little bit quiet. And for example, I want to tell you that if the people will work, you can feel the difference in the salaries between the Arabs and the Jews. And we work to close the gap about this point, about this issue. But the problem, each side sometimes feel that he's the victim. And if you'll ask the Jewish people, they will say to you, we are the victim. And if you'll ask the Arabs, they will say, we are the victim. And this is a psychological feeling and a psychological process, internal process for both sides to keep their identities, to serve their identities. And our work is to heal that feelings from both sides.
Great, it's good to know. And given the volatile situation in Middle East generally, and especially in Israel, how you think about working relationship, sort of day-to-day life of Muslims in Israel, and particularly about their rights to exercise their spiritual beliefs? Do you think is there any attack on their rights to exercise their spiritual beliefs?
Not from the general people. The attacks will come sometimes from radicals. You heard about some mosques that the radical Jews burn the mosques. You remember that. But directly, I saw and I received a call from Rabbi Fruman, Allah yarhamu, rahimahullah. He all the time called me, Ghassan, we need to go to that village. And I say, Rabbi Fruman, you know, this is in Palestine, and it's very dangerous for you. He said, no, I want to go. Please, I want to help. I want to build. I want to restore it with them. And directly, when he came, we met with sometimes some monks. He came with a Quran because he saw all the time that they burn also the Quran. And he brought some books of the Quran to the mosque, and sometimes he gave money to restore it. And I saw him cries, and he said, God, why you give the people the power to do that bad things? And but usually we practice our spiritual life, our faith in our holidays, and also in daily life. We go to the mosques, we pray, and we get out to our houses with some friends sometimes. It's a full life. It's a full life. We have a little bit, as I mentioned, discrimination, but in usual it's okay.
As you said, that it's a full life for Muslims in Israel. And also, as we see undemocratic situation all across Middle East.
Right.
I hear that the Muslims in Israel feel blessed that they are living in relatively better society compared to their neighborhoods.
Right.
Is it the correct perception?
Yes, it's a correct perception, and I want to tell you something. Listen, I'm not against the Arab world, but what happens in Syria? You see, the leader killed about 500,000, and 8 millions out of their houses, out of Syria. It's very, very, very bad thing for me. It's makes me sad. And also, if you look at Libya, if you look at different places, you will see it's a very, very, very bad things. And in Israel, we are quiet. We live in silence. We practicing our work, our life, our families. It's better than to be in Syria today. It's better than to be in Syria or in Libya, different countries. It's not so easy to live in that countries.
What is the situation of Muslims in Israel in terms of their radical ideas or in terms of their different sects? What is scenario there?
What do you mean?
Are there different Salafi, Shia, Sunni, Brahmi?
Yes.
Ahmadiyya, different sects?
Yes.
And how do they feel about Islam?
Yes.
I'm not talking about just the Israel society.
Yes.
How do they feel about Islam?
Listen, we have connections with all of that sects. For example, we have Islamic movements there. We have Sufis. We have Ahmadis. But only Ahmadis we have. But there's no Shia. There's no Alawis. There's no others. We have Sunnis and Ahmadis in Israel, and the connection, it's not bad between all of that sects, but we have tension sometimes between the Sufis and the radicals there in Islam. We have radicals. I had a tension in Jerusalem when I used to live in Jerusalem, and after that when I moved to Nazareth, also in the beginning we had a little bit clash with the Salafis there, but after that we fixed that situation, and we began to live each one in his side. Okay, and but that sects, each school, each sect, they practice their lives, their doctrines, their life as they like.
Yeah. So, how big is the Salafi or the radical community in Israel?
It's not so big.
Okay, so that means that the Muslims in Israel are generally very open-minded.
Yes.
And very peaceful.
Yes.
And do they practice sort of a traditional values of Islam, or they are kind of in a sort of a modernization, reformation, or what we call ijtihad, for instance?
Yes.
So what sort of the majority of the Muslims in Israel?
It's first of all, you're right. All of that, most of 90% of the Muslims, they are open mind there, and in each time you need to active the tool of the ijtihad, because you have a new things that it's didn't was in the past. Then you need to create ijtihad for that new things, and they practice all of their lives with kind of ijtihad, with kind of traditional lives. But we have all of our ways of the traditional scholars, traditional teachings with us, and we practice everything in the straight way that we think that this is straight way.
So, as you said, we practice things, Islamic rituals in a straight way. So that straight way is perceived different ways by different groups.
Yes.
And Sufi usually, as you belong to a Sufi school of thought, Sufis in Islam are more secular and open-minded people.
Not more secular, but open-minded, because all of us, we are a religious
Right.
and very religious people. Listen, one day, some people asked me in my lectures about Sufis, do you have a differences between all of the orders that you have, like Mevlavi, Qadiri, Naqshbandi, Dasuqi, Ahmadi? And I said, sometimes the problem that you see the external shape of the ways, but in the internal side, the same thing, the same practices, the same ways, the same thinking, the same doctrine, the same faith, but in the external shape, it's different. For example, for the Mablavis, they have a veiling dervish. We doesn't have the veiling dervish. We have a different thing called dhikr, yeah. But when the Mevlavi, and when I make the dhikr, we say the same thing, the same prayers, the same chantings. Then maybe this part will practice the Islamic way in his own thinking, and I practice the Islamic way in my thinking, but in the end you'll see us in the same mosque, in the same point. We will come the same place, and we read from the same book, the Quran, the same oral tradition. Then we are all of us. Even I go to this way or to this way, but if you look in the hidden eye, you can see the connection or the engage.
With this all spiritual connectivity among Muslims in Israel, do you think that majority of the Muslims in Israel believe in separation of religion and mosque idea, or do they believe mixing them together?
I'm not sure that I understand you.
No, do Muslims in Israel believe in separation of faith and the politics?
Politics and religion.
Yeah, yes.
Listen, it's a little bit difficult because in our situation, we as minorities, it's very difficult for us to believe in the separation between the life. We cannot say politics, we say life and the religion, because everything is connected one to another, especially the politics, it's connected one to another. You know, I mentioned that, most of the problems that happens, the people say this is religious problems, and part of them say this is political problems. And in their essence, you can see the connection between religion and politics. I think there's no separation or separate between religion and politics or life. There's no.
My last question, you visit many places in the world.
Yeah.
Do you get chance to visit Islamic countries as well? And if so,
yes,
then what is your perception about difference between practicing Islam in Israel and rest of the Muslim world?
Listen, yes, I was in Islamic states, for example, Egypt, in Jordan, in Qatar, in different places. And I saw that the question, is there different to practice Islam in Israel or to practice Islam in Muslim countries? I don't think this is a very balanced question, because it's depend to you as a Muslims how to practice your religion in every place all over the world. For example, if you'll go to the Arab world, to Arab countries, you can find a group of Muslims. They can practice their religion better than me or better than the people in Israel. And sometimes you can see a group in Israel practice their religion or their faith better than all of the Arab worlds. It's depends to you as a Muslim how you can practice your religion. But the most important thing to practice your religion, first of all, you need to base on ethical values, love, forgiveness, giving things. This is our practicing our religion, because sometimes the people think the radical thing that religion is how to protect your religion, to fight the other. But the moderate Muslims think to protect your religion, it to spread peace, to bring the other, and to give the other place, not only around you, because most of the people say that I will give them, the Christians or the Jews, a place in my life. It's good to give place in your life, but also to give their place within you. You need to believe with this, to give that people that place, because this place will create a very active movement within you. After that, you will create lots of things like what happened in the Golden Age. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manasra. And in the end, I would request you to give a message to Canadian Muslims in context of, for instance, we have a Muslim committee against anti-Semitism, because we feel even in Canada, there's a little bit new anti-Semitism sort of thing. So we Muslims in Canada are trying to address those issues, trying to tell our Muslim brothers and sisters that it's not good for them either. Right. So what is your message in that context?
My message in that context is the Muslims need to know that they are the majority of the Semitic nation. They are the majority of the Semitic nation. And the Jews, they are the minority of the Semitic nation. Then, I think they need to create a new era, a new future for themselves, and to connect with the other. Because if you need to know yourself, because you know the oral tradition, if you'll know yourself, you'll know your God. Go and know yourself. You will not succeed. How you can know yourself? You need to look at the eyes of the other. Then you can reflect yourself there, and then you can know yourself through the other. After that, you will know yourself, you'll know your God. Then, I think, know the other to know yourself. You cannot live alone. You are not alone in this world, okay? It's very important to look at the other, to connect the other, and to learn with the other. Sometimes you can read your scriptures, and sometimes you cannot understand. But if you'll bring another one, you will help one another to his scriptures and your scriptures, to know yourself. My message for them: love one another, connect one another, forgive one another, and go knock the door and tell them, I want to know you. After that, you will feel them, you will understand them.
Thank you very much. It's certainly an honor for us to have you in our show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
And viewers, I'm sure you have watched a very special talk with Sheikh Ghassan Manasra today, and thank you for watching our show.